right now for all those people on Facebook. Welcome. This is Rabbi Cohen from Israel. From Israel. Do I have to speak like this? Is that better? Okay. So we're here investigating this very, very deep spiritual rule that he mentioned last week. Okay. And the rule basically, let me tell you what page are we on. We are on page, we're going to be beginning on page 189, I believe, paragraph 138. But we're going to do a little recap because the big spiritual rule that he mentions, and it's apropos always for every single thing, he says that in order for revelation to occur, there has to be first a concealment, okay? And then everybody's into the revelation. I don't like the word revelation, isn't such a great word, you know. I think of Sunday morning ministers. But in any case, we think of Gilui in Hebrew. And the way my father puts it, aha, okay? As a matter of fact, his website is aha.com. Okay? Because everybody wants, and everybody is searching for the big aha, and then you only want a lot of ahas, because we like ahas, okay? But you can only have the aha moment, the revelation, the epiphany, okay? There has to be a concealment first, okay? So he brought, there has to be concealment first, okay? So it's brought down in other languages too. And the other languages that it brings down, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov brings down, Kol Aliyah Tzorech Yerida, or maybe it was Kol Yerida Tzorech Aliyah. Every going down is only necessary for there to be a going up, okay? Which is also kind of the same similar fashion. Going down is a level of concealment, hiding, okay? And the idea there, of course, he brings down two imageries, ideas, concepts. One is in the physical realm that we see that if you plant a wheat grain, you will not get a wheat plant until that seed is planted, rots, and then is sprouted. And then the other idea, concept that he gave was the blackened wick, and I call it the blackened wick, to the flame. The connection is you have to have a wick in order for there to be a flame. And that's in the spiritual realms. So all of it that we're involved with in our earthly plane is to be involved in the wick. Okay? In other words, where the wick is like a vessel. The vessel has got to hold the light. And that vessel has to be a level of what he's talking about of concealment, hester, hiddenness. Okay? And there's a lot of ideas that are expressed in that I thought of when I was looking at this again. And I think of the Karate Kid movie, as everybody knows. And the classic lines of the Karate Kid movie was wax on, wax off, right? And the guy has to wax on and wax off all the cars. And he wants to learn karate. And he says, what does this have to do with the karate? And then he has to paint the fences. And I forgot what the moves of the painting of the fences. All I remember was wax on, wax off. And then finally, at the end of all that, which is, let's say, we'll call it, for our example, concealment. Because he's like, I want to learn karate. This is not karate, right? It's like, we want to connect. And yet here we are in a state of concealment. I want to connect. How is this connecting? Okay. So, how is this connecting? So the wax on, wax off obviously helped this guy to obviously have skills in the end that was able to him to know karate. Okay? Interestingly enough, when we think also in the theme that we're in, I'm here in Israel. Everybody walks outside with a mask. You can't go anywhere without a mask. It's not like Texas. Okay? Texas, you can walk outside without a mask. Okay? Even though I know we see people in their cars with a mask. I don't get it. Whatever. Okay? But the masks are concealment. Are they not? Right? How interesting. Here is a level of concealment so we can think good. Now, take a deep breath. Rabbi, cool. Concealment is good because concealment only means there will be a revealing, okay? So all of this that we're involved with is all a concealment for the sake of a revealing. The greatest example I'm going to now share with you comes from the Holy Master, the Baal Shem Tov. The Holy Master, the Baal Shem Tov, brings a fantastic idea that actually he brings from the Talmud. There's a passage which explains certain verses from the book of Daniel. I'm just going to kind of skim over it. But it basically gets into a conclusion that the Torah is 3,200 times the size of the universe. In other words, if you mention the universe, great, and that's big. But the Torah is, now it's just a number. 32 is a very classic number in Judaism. It's Lev, right? The first and last letter of the Torah is Beit, and the last letter is Lamed, Lev, heart. But the Torah says basically, that it brought down that the Torah, the light of the Torah, is 3,200 times greater than the creation, than the world, okay? The universe. And then the question is asked, wait a minute, if it's that much greater, how come we don't see it? How come we don't see it? How come we don't see the light of the Torah? Or, more specifically, as the Baal Shem Tov goes into, the light of the righteous, the holy righteous, the greatest teachers who have the most unbelievable teachings. How come we're not exposed to it? How come we're not reveling in it? How come, what's going on? So he brings this is so deep, it's so big. He says, if you're standing in front of a huge mountain, let's say, huge mountain, and you take a little coin, and you take the coin, and you put it in front, you close one eye, and you put it in front of the other eye, what's going to happen? You're not going to see that mountain anymore, right? And then as soon as you take that little coin away, then you see this huge mountain. He says, well, how can it be? This little coin takes away our ability to see the huge mountain. And it's obvious. It's because what? That little coin is in our eyes. It's blockage, concealment, okay? All we have to do is remove, and that coin represents the physicality of the universe. The physicality of the universe blocks us, and it's not that big. That's the point. The problem is it's so much in front of our eyes that we can't see the bigger picture and the real revelation and the light of the Torah that's going on around us. It's just a little coin in front of the eyes. But it's necessary, okay? The fact that God has to bring a concealment in order to bring a revealing, we have to experience that darkness in order to appreciate the light. Okay, that's what we talked a little bit about last week. And in going into that, though, he brings now the biggest revelation that we've had is the revelation at Mount Sinai. And the revelation at Mount Sinai, God brought us the Torah. And the interesting thing is if that Torah, and we're taught, there's all names of God, or it's really one long name of God, which means it's a revelation of God, or it's names of God. How come in the Torah we have all of these dark places in the Torah? You have names of wicked people, Bilam, right, Paro. And then we have also these dreadful curses, Parshas Behukosai and Kisisa, right? Or Kitetse. So why do we have all these curses? Dreaded curses. Dreaded. Terrible. What kind of revelation of God is that? It's supposed to be positive. It's supposed to be happy. It's supposed to be enlightening, right? Where's the enlightenment in that? Okay? So now he's going to get into the idea of what is the Torah that we discussed last week. There's what we'll call, we know that the Torah of God is really one. But we have to understand the Torah that we got at Mount Sinai was not the cosmic Torah, the primordial Torah, necessarily in that form. So we got into a little bit last week, and I don't think I finished with it. Please forgive me. Sometimes I get off topic. But we have what's called the primordial Torah. And we don't know about that until like I told you guys before, the last 5 verses in the Torah. The last 5 verses in the Torah, which says, and Moses died there. And they say, well, how could Moses write that if he's not dead yet, right? So they say, Rashi said, he wrote it b'dema, loosely translated is that he wrote it in tears. But the Baal Shem Tov begs the issue and says, it doesn't really answer the question. What ink he wrote it in doesn't answer the question how Moshe, if the Torah is true, could have written that. Okay? So there was one answer that Yeshua wrote it, but that doesn't hold up. Moshe gave a complete Sefer Torah to all of the tribes before he passed away, a complete Sefer Torah. It wasn't missing something. Okay? There wasn't going to be a need for a recall. So the idea here is Moshe wrote it b'dema. So it explains there, it goes into the concept of how do we understand all of the stories written if the Torah was written 2,000 years before creation? How do we understand it? So we understand that there was a cosmic field of random letters, and we can call those letters an alphabet soup of energies, an alphabet soup of letters that are random in the sky, so to speak, as my father-in-law put it. That as every single thing played out in our history, then those letters took their places in the form of the Torah that we have today. As Adam reached for the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the letters fell into place. As Noah built the ark, and it took him 120 years to build it, and there was a flood, and then he prayed. So then all of those letters. And Abraham, as he did everything that he was doing, those letters fell into place. But there's a primordial Torah that was these energies. And the way we look at it is very cosmic, the letters. I don't know if you guys looked at the YouTube video that I sent you. It was a great YouTube video about how the letters of only the Hebrew it works. That the letters actually, when you sound out, will actually take a form, right? And they tried it with every single language. And only in the Hebrew, when they sounded it out, did the computer print out the form of that sound. The sound has a form to it, okay? The Hebrew, we're taught, the Torah is the blueprint of creation. But in order to make that blueprint, you needed the letters. And the letters are the cosmic building blocks of creation. Each letter is a tremendous power and energy, and only in the Hebrew letters, okay? A beit, a resh, a vav, and a chaf, baruch. The word baruch has a very powerful energy, okay? They're very powerful creative forces. As a matter of fact, that's where the Baal Shem Tov gets into his whole huge topic in terms of how his technique of meditative prayer was. His technique of meditative prayer was to get the letters, as you're saying them, to shine in your mind's eye, so to speak. And then each letter combines with the next letter to form a word, and that in your mind, in the meditative field, you get it to shine ever so bright, okay? That each and every letter of tefillah, you're doing that with your mind, imagining the letter shining so bright and combining with each and every letter. It's quite a dynamic technique. I believe that it's not practiced by most people. I try to do it. I'm still on the bait of Baruch, okay? I've been so for 20 years. I'm getting a little better. So in any case, so the idea here is when Moshe wrote the letters in tears, the word I said was b'dema. Dema is also another word, another definition that means jumbled. Actually, there's a topic, a case in Jewish law where an amount of consecrated food, we call that tithed food, supposed to go to the priest, the Cohen, gets mixed with regular food that the regular person can eat. You call that, right? It's called demai, right? No. It's midma'at, okay? That means it got blended, okay? Midma'at means it got blended. So dema, the other definition is blended. In other words, when the last letters needed to be written, Moshe wrote it in jumbled form. It wasn't in the form that we have it. It was mixed. And only after he died, then we're able to go ahead and look at those, and I don't understand how, but the way it's explained to me was the letters then took their proper position in the form that we have it now, okay? So here we're just introduced, it's a little introduction into this cosmic field of energy, which was what the Torah is in the higher realms, and then what the form of the Torah that we have here. They're one and the same, as he's going to tell us now, but it was once asked to me, total side topic, but you might find this interesting. Okay, there's always a discussion if there's life on other planets, right? So it was asked, of course, one rabbi didn't know. I happen to know there's a source that there is life on other planets. But one rabbi answered and he says, whatever you'll say, if there's life on other planets, it's impossible that they would not also be given a Torah, okay? So there's always going to be a Torah given to everybody. No matter what planet, no matter what life, there's a Torah. It won't take the same form that we have, because we have, in terms of weaved into our history, there's nothing that God cannot do. He's infinite. He can weave the Torah, the cosmic energy, into our history, okay? It's interesting to note, you always have to think this in mind, that it's amazing that this book, the Torah, can be enjoyed by a 3-year-old child. You tell stories about Noah, Abraham, Moses, and yet an 80-year-old genius, the Vilna Gaon, the only thing he learned at the end of his life, after he read every single book and he knew it clearly, the only thing he studied was Chumash, 5 books of Moses at the end of his life. Because through those letters, he was able to extrapolate unbelievable revelations through those letters. So just understand, through the letters of the Torah, there's unbelievable connection, okay? So that's why they say there's 3 books that if you just read them, even though you don't understand, there is a spiritual effect that it has on your soul. Those 3 books are Chumash, 5 books of Moses, Tehillim, Psalms, and the Zohar, okay? In any case, let's get into where we are as we left off, okay? So I think we're on page 189 in the sheets and paragraph 138, okay? So we have, as we know in Kabbalistic tradition, 4 worlds, 4 realms going from the Ein Sof, the isness, the unlimitedness of the creator of the universe, went through 4 degradations until our world, called Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and our world is called Making Asiya. So, however, starting on paragraph 138, however, you should know that even though there is a huge difference between the garments of the Torah in this physical world and its garments in the world of Atzilut. Atzilut is the highest place, the alphabet soup of energies, the Torah itself, which is to say that the light which is inside those garments does not change in any way at all. In other words, within even our Torah that we have here, the same light, we have access to it, right? Through the Torah that we have here in our world, we have access to the Torah of Atzilut. The light of the Torah of Atzilut is just the same as that of the Torah of this world. As it is written, I, God, do not change. What it is really, it's just the garments. There's more layers. Furthermore, okay, so that's one. Don't think that there's a cosmic Torah of, the primordial Torah and then our Torah. There are one and the same. It's just our Torah, the Torah of the world of Asiya, making our realm. It's just got more garments, okay? But within it, all of the garments, if you could take off the garments, the exact cosmic energy is there. Furthermore, the coarse garments in which the Torah is enclosed in our world of Asiya do not in any way diminish its light. On the contrary, These coarse garments are incomparably more important for the task of completing the transformation, that means the tikkun, than the more spiritual ones which the Torah wears in the higher worlds, as concealment, again, is the first cause of revelation. In other words, the concealment that we have in our Torah, don't think, oh, it's a dark part of the Torah and everything. There is greater light in that concealment, okay? But you need to make a fixing, a tikkun. That's where we come in, okay? That's where we come in, and that's our training. We have to go and plunge into the concealment in order to make the tikkun, in order that there will be a greater revelation. We got to light the flame. We become the flame, okay? We become the candle for there to be a flame, okay? When concealment has been healed and transformed into revelation, it becomes like the wick of a candle with respect to the light that it holds. The greater the concealment has, the greater the concealment has been, the greater the light it will reveal and hold at its healing. Okay? Lot's daughters, right? What was their intention in mind when they got their father drunk and slept with him? They had the highest of intentions. They were involved in fixing the world. They thought all of humanity was destroyed and they had to keep the world going. Their intentions were unbelievably pure. And because of that, Mashiach comes through them. Okay? Their intentions. Okay? And the biggest one, okay, was the story of the son of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Every single year, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would read in the Torah in the synagogue. He would read every single week. And then it came time that there was a week where he wasn't going to read, and he had somebody else reading for him. It was the week of Parshas Ki Tetzei, where they were going to read the curses. Okay? And no, Ki Tavo. Sorry, Ki Tavo has the curses. Ki Tavo, and they were going to have the curses. And the curses are like 98 curses. And the custom usually is in synagogue, when you're going to read those curses, you read them real low, real fast. And so here's the son, he's sitting in the synagogue, and comes the person and they're going to read the curses, and he passes out. He passes out totally, and they go, what's wrong, what's up, big deal? And they carry him, they take him home, they finally revive him, and they go, what's happened, what's going on? He says, I couldn't take it, the curses, I couldn't take it. They were reading the curses. And they said to him, Bubby, you're 58 years old. You've been in synagogue before. You've heard these curses being read all the time. Bubby, why now are you passing out? He says, my father, every time my father read them, I only heard blessings. Do you hear this? In other words, and the Baal Shem Tov goes through some of them, and I'm still looking at, I read a text, a couple of articles many years ago. I'm still trying to dig how a lot of the Rebbes would go through those curses and explain them in such a way where they are the most unbelievably gewaltic blessings. But of course, there's like, they do some kind of, mojo on them. They work a mojo on those words. And all of a sudden you're going, oh my gosh. Each one of them are the most unbelievable kisses of love from God. That's how the son used to experience that Torah reading when his father read them. Okay? When somebody else read them, it went to curses again, and he fell, and that's why he passed out. Okay? So the Torah has great revelations in it. They're just encased in something. Just to finish off this paragraph. So the greater the concealment has been, the greater the light it will reveal and hold at its healing. Therefore, the coarse clothing of the Torah wears in this world, therefore, the coarse clothing the Torah wears in this world does not in any way cause the light of the Torah to diminish at all. As a matter of fact, there's a Ramchal I just thought about. As a matter of fact, it's like another technique. He says you have to look at the Hebrew letters as if they are embers, coals, right? And what you do is when you read, you're blowing on them. And when you blow on the coals, that ignites the fire that is within them, okay? So the letters are very, very dynamic. The bait is not a bait. Matter of fact, just from this talk, just from this right here, people have to take upon themselves at least one blessing in Hebrew a day. Find one blessing you could say a day, and make sure you try to say it in Hebrew. Asher Yatzar is always my suggestion, because that's the bathroom blessing, and it brings healing to the world. It has a special property to bring healing, but and to know that the power of the letters have tremendous energy in them. Okay, but here so far the idea in this paragraph is whether you have the primordial Torah, this Torah, it's all just dressed down, okay, and it's encased, but that encasing means for a greater light. And here we go, paragraph 139. The Talmud tells us, when Moses ascended on high, the ministering angels spoke before the Holy One, blessed be He, right? As we know, this is a famous Talmud passage in the Talmud from tractate Shabbos, right? That Moses goes up to get the Torah, and the angels are up there. They're playing, probably playing cards, smoking Cubans. And they're going, hey, what Earthman? What are you doing here, Shay? Right? And he says, I'm here to get the Torah. And they go, yeah, right. We're going to eat you for breakfast. You're not supposed to be here. And what's this? The Torah is not for you. Okay? And that's when they're going to come in and basically going to consume him. And God says to Moses, grab my throne and answer them. And that became the huge debate in heaven between Moses and all of the angels. And Moses, basically, the passage in the Talmud goes through each one of the 10 commandments, and he beats them. Here it just brings 2 examples, right? Right, so they asked him, you desire to give this to flesh and blood? This is what the angels said to God. And the Holy and Blessed be He said to Moses, answer them. He said, really, hold on to my throne of glory. And that's a really great thing. I just have to add something, a really interesting concept here, because people don't understand what that means. Rabbi Nachman does say in the second part of his book, the very first Torah, he says that it's the life goal of a Jewish person to have dominion over the angels. Every angel. That's our goal in life. When you wake up in the morning, my goal is to have dominion over the angels. Okay? Why? How can that be, right? How can we be created for such a purpose? Okay? And the answer simply is, our souls are carved from the throne of glory. In other words, if you could picture such a place, such a realm, such a cosmic address in the cosmic realm, where God honed from the throne from this certain place all of our neshamas. So, and that throne, world of the throne, is called the world of Bria, creation. That is above the realm of the angels. So we have a natural ability to have dominion over the angels. Now, Rabbi Nachman does go a little bit more, and he has to say, but you have to be careful. You have to be very careful, because the angels are jealous of you, and they want to take you down, like that well-known kids game, King of the Mountain, right? Where the goal is to pull the guy down. He says the angels will be very, very jealous. They want to pull you down. The only way you can stay up is if you come from the intention, the motivation has to be that you're connected to all of the souls of all of the Jewish people. When you're connected to all of the souls of all of the Jewish people, they cannot touch you. So when Moses was told to grab hold of the throne, that meant for him to take that representative idea, actually, to know, really, that he's connected to all of the souls of Israel. And only when he knows he's doing this on behalf of the entire Jewish people, only then can he have dominion over the angels. So then the debate started. Once he knew, and it's for us also, it really is very important that every single thing that we do has to be for the intention to fix all of humanity, and specifically to start off with the Jewish people. Don't think it's impossible. You hear me? I know you're thinking that. Don't think that, okay? Because you know what happens? Every thought creates an angel. And if you think impossible, you create impossible. Don't think it. Don't think hard. We can do it. We're going to do it. We're in the club. Just take a deep breath, okay? Yes, I know, Dr. Winters, you're going, yeah. Take it easy. Okay, so here comes the debate in heaven. Moses. He says, do you guys have any... What does it say in the Torah? Sorry. He says, what does it say in the Torah? Right? I'm going to go a little bit off the text here. What does it say in the Torah? It says, don't worship any other gods. You guys get involved in idolatry? And the angels go, no. So, 1 point for me. And he says, it said, what else does it say? You got to honor your mother and father. You guys got a mama and a papa? And they go, no. And he says, and the other one here, do you guys feel any jealousy? Right? It says in the Torah, don't covet your neighbor's house, wife, donkey. You guys got jealousy? No. He says, so obviously in the end what happened is he won the debate. And all the angels became his trusted friends. Okay? Even the angel of death. Okay? So he won the debate. The question was, here going on the next page, 190. This passage illustrates that, as we have explained, the greatest concealment reveals the greatest light. This is the Sulam's Connect on this, and it's nice. The greatest concealment reveals the greatest light. Moses demonstrated to the angels that it is impossible for the greatest lights to be revealed through the pure garments which the Torah wears in the world of the angels. You guys are an Olam Yetzirah. That's awesome. You guys got a Torah in the world of Yetzirah formation. That is awesome. But, your revelation, the degree that you guys are going to be involved in revealing things is only like squawka. It's not going to be, it's a paka. It's not going to be so great. Us dudes, only we can go down to the lowest place. Our souls, the angels, they said, hey, you guys, you want to go down there and go ahead and fix it? Right? Who's going to go fix the world of Asiya? Who's going to go rescue the lost princess? The angels go, we can't handle it down there. No way. Only us. We are the commandos. That's right. All of our souls, which are honed from the throne of glory, become the commandos who can go down into the lowest realms and rescue the princess. Okay? So that's what he was saying. Again, Moses demonstrated to the angels that it is impossible for the greatest lights to be revealed through the pure garments which the Torah wears in the world of the angels, which is the world of Yetzirah. This is only possible through the garments of this world. In the lowest places where things are very obscured, that's where we get to do our move. That's where we get to be involved and relish in the opportunity to fix, okay? When there is concealment and it is rectified. The question is, how do we rectify this, right? It's all perception. And the beginning of perception is the fact that you can't have a revelation unless there's a concealment. So you have to understand that concealment is all part of a great thing. So of course, like I always tell everybody, when it happens and you're in the concealment mode, right? The concealment comes to you, right? So you have to start off with first, thank you, Hashem, for this concealment. I can hardly wait to see how this candle is going to get lit, how this wick is going to get lit, and there's going to be a great revelation that's going to come, a great tikkun, okay? Paragraph 140, okay? So there is no difference at all between the Torah of Atzilut, where the Torah and God are one, and the Torah of this world. There's no difference. There's no difference. The only difference lies in the garments that we experience when we learn the Torah down here, our Torah. It is the garments of this world that conceal God and hide him. Of course, now it comes our job. You should know that by virtue of his being clothed, God, meaning clothed, when God is clothed in the Torah, and the word Torah, do you guys know what it means? Now, Torah means instruction, right? It means teaching, the teaching. HaTorah, the teaching. And God is known as Moreh. It's the same root, teacher. That's where good old Nachum Futnik has that podcast. Torah means teacher. Okay? This is to inform us that at the time of single and even double concealment, God is present and enclosed within the Torah. For the Torah is the Moreh. The Torah is the teacher. Okay? Which means what? Okay? When you look at it, it almost gets to a romantic perception. Because when you think about what is really going on, and when we think about the concept of Ein Sof, God is all there is, and all there is unlimitedness. No one made it. It has always existed. And here we are, all brought about as a creation. We're willed into existence in order to experience this isness of creation, in order to experience the unlimited creative intelligence that really you can't put a concept on God. As soon as you put a concept, it's not that. The highest concept is Ein Sof. There is an isness, which God willed us to existence in order to experience it. God is all there is. And of course, then we would want to know of what is the teaching. Torah, HaTorah, means the teaching, meaning the teaching of reality, of what is really going on here. Okay? And thank God that we had Mount Sinai, and thank God for all of the Rebbes and teachers who give us over the teaching of what is. It goes way beyond this world. It goes way beyond the universe. The teaching of what is so beyond, and it takes us to greater realms, okay, of consciousness. Going on, the coarse garments of the Torah of our world act like wings that cover and conceal the teacher, may he be blessed, who was enclosed and concealed by them. So really the idea, the concept is we have to peel off those wings and peel off the layers that conceal God, who is within the letters, within the words. I have to just go on a little bit more. I explained that we don't really know what the Torah is until the end. That means the last 5 verses of the Torah was written, right, in a mixed form, and we're introduced to the primordial Torah. Now, if you look at the Baal Shem Tov, and he starts his very first Torah of Bereshit, the very first, it says that when the Mashiach comes, he will expound every single letter and combination of the Torah. In other words, the very first word of Bereshit, he will now bring you the word Bereshit and every combination of it, the energies that it represents. And then he'll move on to the next word, and then the next word. And each and every word, he will unfold different mysteries and different revelations, going from word to word, letter by letter, word. It's one long class, okay? But it'll still be the class of a lifetime, because then you'll be exposed to a light that is beyond, okay? But right now we have the coarse garments, and God is hidden in the coarse garments that we see. But you have to know, thank God, behind that, there's unbelievable light. Just got to remove the coin from the eye. However, when a person merits the revelation of the divine face through the transformation of love of God in its 4th level, it is said of him, your teacher, which means God, will no longer be covered by wings, and your eyes will see your teacher. This is an amazing. From then onwards, the garments of the Torah no longer conceal the teacher, and it is revealed to the person for eternity that the Torah and God are one. So in other words, connecting to Torah will be connecting to the greatest drug of all, which is God. Yeah, you got a question? You want to unmute yourself? Yeah.
If you say Torah and God are one, then you could worship the Torah. But that's like idol worship.
Oh, what a great question, right?
The Torah with God.
Great question. So I hear what you're saying. As a matter of fact, I had a big problem with that when they would raise the Torah in synagogue and everybody would point their finger. Okay? But we have to understand that when we look at God, and in terms of, the term is Ein Sof, the name, the highest name. You really can't name God's essence. There really is no name. It's beyond any concept. The name that we have for God is Ein Sof. There is no end. Okay? We of course come from finiteness. We can't have a relationship with something that has no concept. We need concepts. The concepts are our handles. The concepts are our ability to grasp. So the Torah, you can say, is God's garment, so to speak, in terms of how to have a relationship with us. You're right. You can look at it in a certain way of, okay, but that's only if you separate the garment from the Ein Sof who is wearing the garment. But if you know that the garment is just an expression of God, so then of course you'll never separate it, and you'll understand that it's only a means, if I can use such a word, in order to grasp the Ein Sof. I don't even know if I make sense to myself at this point, okay? But we do have to have some kind of concept that you're right. We don't, God forbid, worship the Torah, God forbid. But we have to understand that it is a way for us to grasp the infinite. So it's a means, it's a shvil, it's a path. It's a kli, it's a vessel, okay? So we need vessels. So you're right, never worship the vessel. Just know the vessel is just a vessel, okay? Now I don't know where we are.
You're at the bottom of 140.
All right, right. So here, when they left, the rabbis left the home of Rabbi Abba, they gave him a blessing. And they said, your teacher will no longer be covered by wings and your eyes will see your teacher. Which means that really they gave him a blessing that all of the parts of the Torah that seem to be concealed will now be revealed. And the wings of the letters and the energy that is behind the letters will be revealed, and he will see God in the Torah. Meaning without any concealment whatsoever. So from then on, the garments of the Torah will no longer conceal the teacher, and it is revealed to the person for eternity that the Torah and God are one. Okay? In other words, the way to grasp the Ein Sof is through the Torah. From this, you can understand the sage's comment on the verse that says, forsake me, but keep my Torah. It brings down, I think it's from the book of Daniel, okay? Or Isaiah, actually. 1 second. 141. Okay, so they don't bring it. I think it's from a verse from Isaiah. It says, God says, forsake me, just leave me, just keep my Torah. So they explain this in the Talmud. Right? If only, Hashem says, you forsake me, but keep my Torah. There's a lot of explanations of commentaries on this. Here is going to be the Sulam's explanation. It's an astounding line, but here he helps us make sense. He helps it to make sense. If only you would forsake me, God says, but keep my Torah. Why? For the light which is in it will transform you. I kind of did skip in the paragraph before that the idea here is what we have to do is we have to work to a concept to be on a level of consciousness where we see it. And I get a slight little window every now and then. How much God, every single thing he's doing for us because he loves us so much, but we don't see it. But if you were to see it for a second, how much you would see how much God is caring and loving in every single one of our circumstances to such a degree that he only wants to fix the world and he only wants to be there in the most unbelievable way for the entire world. That's called level 4 consciousness, where not only you see how God is good to us in our lives, but God is good to all of creation. If you really fix that in your consciousness, right, the more and more you'll see how much that the Torah will transform a person, okay? This seems superficially to be rather surprising. However, right, to say that God would say, leave me and just leave my Torah. But obviously, I think he gives the answer is because the Torah helps you to see God. Okay? Now, listen, I have to interject with some little interesting thing here. You have to understand here something. There was once this guy, this atheist, who came to Rabbi Nachman. And, and of course the atheist is sitting with Rabbi Nachman, and the atheist says, I don't believe in God, right? And he's blah, 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 blah. And Rabbi Nachman says to him, the same God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. Think about that, okay? Most people have a limited concept of the Creator, okay? And they project all of the mishigas and the craziness that this is God, but he's way beyond, okay? That if you were to partake of the real light of the Torah, you would see God. So, however, the sages are referring to people who fast. This is what it's talking about here. This is his explanation. The sages are referring to people who fast and afflict themselves, trying to induce a revelation of God's face. And there are people still who do it. Of course, the Baal Shem Tov did abolish personal fasting. You fast on fast days, okay. You can't avoid that. Those are communal fasts. It's part of hooking in with the pain of the community, which we have discussed earlier. Just to fast when the community fast is your ability to hook in to the pain of the community, and therefore a person merits to see the redemption of the community. But for a person to go ahead and hot dog it and wing it and try to be Mr. Holy and fast, right, and do other kind of self-afflictions, right, to be Mr. Holy, it never works, not anymore, okay? They desire the nearness of God, and they do want to be close to God, right? They say, why have we fasted and you do not see it? We've afflicted our souls and you don't notice, right? That's where we call the Torah becomes a drug of death. And then they are told in the name of God, please forsake me, for all your striving is worthless and useless, because I am only to be found in the Torah. In other words, you're missing the point. Okay? The point is to connect to God. The point is to be a conduit. The point is to be the candle, which the light is attached. Therefore, observe the Torah, he says, and seek me in it. Become a seeker. For the light within it will bring you back to the good way. As it is written, those who seek me will find me. Once again, we talked about that in earlier classes, to become a seeker of where can I find God today? I can wake up in the morning and I can say, I can hardly wait to see where I can see God in my life in so many places. Rabbi Eli Mansour, I heard a tape of his, and it was a great tape. He had an exercise that he did with all of the people, his children, sitting around the table. And he would ask, and Friday night he would go, anybody want to share? Where did they see God in their lives this week? And of course, it was very astounding for the members of his household. They struggled at the beginning, of course, but then they got really excited about it. It was fantastic, right? Because then, well, if you don't, the mind is like a supercomputer. If you don't ask a question, it's not going to give you an answer, right? If you ask it a question and keep at the question firm, then the answer will come, okay? It's an amazing idea, okay? Trust me, I'm going to reveal with you something very special that happened on Friday with me and my wife in our new apartment here in Israel. We get a knock on the door from a neighbor. And the neighbor tells us something that we have to control the noise, right? In our balcony, right? and there's lots of reactions that I can have to this. And I took it right. I was very cordial. I wrote, he says, no, the next time you have parties or you're going to be activity at a certain time, because he can't stand noise. So human noise specifically. I don't know why he's in a city, but we'll get into those questions. But in any case, so I asked myself the question, I say, and I'm still in it, by the way. You're in the journey with me, so enjoy. I say, what reaction can I have that's going to give God the greatest nachas ruach, which means gratification? Well, how can I respond to this stimulus in a way that's going to bring out the greatest revelation, the greatest nachas, the greatest sanctification of God? Now, I'm still asking the question, and I'm getting a lot of answers in my mind, and I'm going to go forward, and I know it's going to be great. I know it's just the wick of a candle that has yet to be lit. Here's a concealment, which is there's going to be a revelation, okay? Okay, so now let's go a little bit more, okay? Now it is possible to explain the essence of the wisdom of the Kabbalah. All of these paragraphs to 142 to get to this. At least to a small degree, he says so, in a way that is sufficient for a reliable understanding of the quality of this wisdom. In this manner, a person will not be misled by false images such as many people imagine. Yeshua has 4 aspects which embrace the whole of reality. Okay? 4 aspects, 4 different aspects which embrace the whole of reality. The first 3 are called world, year, and soul. The 4th aspect is the many ways in which the first 3 can combine themselves in different circumstances, okay? So the first thing, we just have to be introduced. Actually, this comes out the very first Mishnah of the oldest book we have in tradition called Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. And it brings down in the Book of Formation that the universe is divided into 3, right? 3. He calls it Olam Shana Nefesh. Olam, world, that's space. Year, that's time. And then soul, which means consciousness. All of reality is divided up into that. It's either time, space, time, or consciousness. The greatest example that I can give you for now, just as a little bit of bait until next week's class where we get into this, is that if we look at space, we could look at, there are certain places which we call, for us, holy, more holier than any other place. Eretz Israel, compared to the rest of the world, Eretz Israel is holy. Okay? No, not Santa Monica. Okay? Eretz Israel is holy. And in Eretz Israel, everybody will have the understanding and the basic level of consciousness that Jerusalem is the holy city. And if you look at Jerusalem as being the holy city, you'll look at the holiest place of Jerusalem is the Temple Mount. And if you look at the Temple Mount, the holiest place in the Temple Mount would be where we would call the Holy of Holies. So if you look at space, you'll look at holy versus non-holy. Okay? Or holier, or holy, or holier. Now, if you'll have time, how do we look at time? So we know, very interestingly enough, in our faith, we know that there are certain times which are holy and certain times which are not. We have the 6 days of the week are called chol, or profane as it's pronounced, but chol, which means just mundane, as opposed to Shabbos, which is holy. We have holidays. All the holidays are holy. Now, if we know and we think about it, some days are holier than others. And most people, if you'd ask them, stop a Jew on the street, what's the holiest day of the year? Most people will say Yom Kippur. And then you'll have people, consciousness people. So you'll have holy people, and people are holy, and some people are holy, and some people are holier. So if we look at the holiest person, it's the high priest. The law is that if you'll have the king right? The Mashiach, we'll call him the king, or let's say King David. The law is that if the high priest comes in, the king has to bow down to the priest. Do you know that? Because he represents the holiest person. Now, if you converge all of those together, what we have is in the holiest day of the year, in the holiest place, and you'll have the holiest person, they converge. That's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, where the high priest, the holiest person, goes in the holiest place to the Holy of Holies and offers the incense. This is just to give you a little tidbit of what does it mean that the universe, in terms of just a stepping stone to understand the universe being divided into space, time, and consciousness. Okay? This is where we're going to start off. We're going to end off here. That's level 1. Okay? And we're going to get into deeper stuff. But right now, just to understand, space, time, consciousness is everything. And actually, consciousness, as we're going to learn, is the greatest of them all. But then we'll have the 4th level that he says is the combination of those things that we're going to get to, God willing, next week. So what did we cover today? We understand that the Torah is very, very cosmic. And even though that it is dressed in many garments, we have a very special mission. That in the darkest places of those Torah, all of it, the curses, Bilam, all those places are only meant to reveal greater aspects of light. And that we, being people who are honed from the highest place of the world of the throne, as Moses stood at Mount Sinai and answered all the angels, he stood not at Mount Sinai and he held on to God's throne of glory, which is the place where all of the souls of Israel are. Only we were chosen as to be commandos to come down here in the darkness and fix it. And we're going to discover that the way to fix it can't be in any other way except the Torah, and it can't be in any other way except the Kabbalah, because the Kabbalah is what's going to reveal the masks that is behind it and the concepts that are underneath everything. Thank God we have the Torah, and Baruch Hashem, we have the Zohar and the holy sages of Israel that uncover and reveal to us the deepest, deepest mysteries of the universe. Okay, with that, we'll end. Any questions, comments?
We got it.